Hello and welcome to Jupiter Unleashed. Today, we are going to orient you with the energy of Jupiter. We're going to help you find the Jupiter activation in your human design chart, which, sneak peek, it also is in your gene key chart. But if you guys are not familiar with which planets activate which spheres in the gene keys, we might illuminate that for you today. But we're definitely going to show you where it is in your human design chart. And we're going to give you an overview of Jupiter, the big behemoth it is in our solar system, and what he's about and what he can bring into your life and how you can utilize that energy. So anything you want to say before we jump it right in? Okay. My name's Ashley. Hi, if it's your first time meeting me, and that's Bella. We're part of Unlock Your Design. And our whole work is using human design, gene keys, astrology, I Ching, all these different systems, bridging the gap between them. And we like to work with archetypes. And if you haven't been familiarized with our website, we have the64doors.com. That's part of Unlock Your Design. We have personified these gates, hexagrams, gene keys into archetypes so that they are more human, so you can interact with them. So we call them inner archetypes. So today we're going to go to Jupiter and let's get started. Yay. Great. Can you see it? We're good? Awesome. Okay, Jupiter Unleashed. Let's unleash Jupiter. Aw. Okay, so if you're not familiar with our solar system, this is a recap. You probably learned it in elementary school, but Jupiter is right here. Jupiter is actually one of the gaseous planets that we have in our solar system. These are all the terrestrial planets. So when we had the formation of the solar system, everything coalesced kind of with these closer planets. So that's why we have, rock and more density here. But then once we get past, I believe it's either the Kuiper belt or the asteroid belt. We have a belt here and a belt here. That's where we have all these gaseous planets, and they're not made up of the same thing. And you can see Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. And if you get into human design and you're talking about the neutrino stream and how the sun is emitting these neutrinos, Jupiter's so big that it also contributes to the neutrino stream. So this is the program, this is the matrix, this is what's alive. So a lot of what's in the neutrino stream comes from our sun and Jupiter just because it's so big. Did you want to say anything else about?
Yeah, big and luminous. And I feel that that's similar to the sun and the moon. I mean, those are important. It feels like they are here to light up our life. And this is what we call a benefic as well. So that's why it's unlocking for us to continue growing. We're going to see also in the mythology with Zeus and like what Jupiter is here to really conquer and allow us to be everything we can be without any limitations, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and each of the planets kind of have their own mythology, just like, the different constellations do. That's because as long as we can date back, we've been looking up at the sky and wondering what was out there, what was up there before we can actually go and see what's out there. We've created telescopes to be able to look far out there. We wanted to know what it was like outside of this earth, out of this reality that we are standing on, living on. And so we've been exploring that. And, we even have our NASA initiative and even SpaceX that is all for space exploration and understanding and development so that we can reach those edges because, we're swirling around together in this solar system and even the universe. So we might as well get familiarized with what's out there. So we're going to look at, in our solar system, Jupiter and what's there for us. So let's get started. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. That also is because it's one of the largest planets we have out there. And like Bella said, it is luminous. It is going to expand whatever it's activating in your chart. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. but knowing your Jupiter activation is going to help you discover, live, and unlock the law that is going to unleash your prosperity. So that's why we're here today, is to orient with this planet, and then also ask the question, like, great, what does it have to do with me? Okay, so here's how you find it in human design. Let's get this out of the way so you already know. So this little symbol over here on the Jupiter planet, it looks like a 4. That's going to be what represents Jupiter. So if you go and look over here, we're going to look at our conscious side. This is the personality side. But we're going to focus on conscious Jupiter. This is actually Bella's chart. So her Jupiter activation is the 28.3. And so why don't you put in the chat, if you have your chart up, what is your Jupiter activation? Let us know. And if you even know what archetype that is from the 64 door library, let us know what archetype that is. Okay, so this is what Ra says about Jupiter. He says, wherever Jupiter is in your chart, this is the law that you must obey in your life. Obey Jupiter. Okay. And now let's get a little bit of information around Jupiter. So the keywords for Jupiter are luck, growth, expansion, optimism, abundance, understanding, truth, wisdom, long distance travel, teacher, visionary, guide, justice, philosophy, and believer. Another tidbit about Jupiter is that it also corresponds to the zodiac sign Sagittarius. So if you're following us with the setup, we'll be going into Sagittarius season at the end of the year, and we'll speak more on Jupiter then. But if you know anything about Sages, they're going to kind of have these kind of qualities because this is the planet that kind of rules that sign. So we'll see an overlap there with the personality traits with people that are ruled by Jupiter and the planet of expansion. And then here is the evolutionary intent. This comes from evolutionary astrology. It says to live your truth, to seek your truth, to expand life's experiences, to grow and explore, to broaden your horizons, to judge for yourself, to believe in what life has to offer, and explore the meaning in life. So this is the intent of Jupiter, and for us as we're working with Jupiter. Anything else you might want to add, Bella?
Yeah, that of course, when Ross said that, he is including the Jupiter on both sides. And like you said, Ashley, that today we're going to focus more on the personality, but I know that we have a few of the things that are coming in from the design side as well. So yeah, it's good to have both for you, but the focus is going to be on personality today.
Mm-hmm. And in the gene keys, which sphere represents that personality Jupiter? So they can, someone was asking in the chat too.
Yeah, so the pearl and the culture in your gene key chart are coded by Jupiter. The design side is the culture, and then the personality is the pearl.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to focus on the personality side to simplify things, but you can go into both if you'd like. It's just in the gene keys, right? The culture sphere is something different than the pearl sphere. So, but they're both coded by Jupiter. Okay, so this is the mantra for Jupiter, particularly the what we're focusing on today. So when I discover my own law and follow it, I am free, in flow, and am ever expanding. What happens when I don't follow it? Let's find out. Okay, so what's the reason why you wouldn't follow your law?
And I think there, the first thing we can say is that how many people, including yourself, do you know that are abundant and ever expanding all the time? Like, that's not really something that we are embodying as of yet on this earth. So most of us are not completely aligned with the statement that was before. So by that, we can kind of say there is some reason, and we aren't all completely following our law. So how can we illuminate that today, and how can we leave in an hour and a half and be more aligned with our law so that we can actually open and expand more and faster and wider.
Yes. Yep. I mean, Jupiter is a beautiful expander. And when we work on, you know, the personal development work, when we go inside of ourselves and kind of go into the depths of what's running underneath the surface, what is my subconscious programming, what's happening here, we get to work through things and expand our bandwidth so that we can hold more, be more, expand more. But if we live in a contracted state, we are living in what's comfortable. And I don't think Jupiter is for what's comfortable. It's constantly pushing the edges. And so it's also has the capability to make you a little bit uncomfortable, but it wants you to grow. It wants you to expand. And we are also going to be weaving in a little bit of Saturn into here too, because Saturn has a kind of a big role in relationship with Jupiter and its ability to expand. So why wouldn't you follow your law? So this quote is from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Yeah. How does that sit with you all? How does that resonate?
And I know we were speaking about this, even going back to the masterclass we did a few weeks ago, where we're speaking about those identity or shadow roles that we take on, where we are in codependent relationship with others, and our identity is linked to our family or our work. And then it's even harder to step out of that and to be so much more expansive. So it's not only that we have the fear of stepping up to that for ourselves, but also what's going to happen with all the everything that's built around us. A lot of that would fall apart if we would really step up to what we're capable of and what we're here to express. And that's also something going together with what Ashley said about the comfort zone.
Okay. Before we get into things, let's look at Saturn and what you have in your Saturn as well, because we're going to be weaving this later, especially when we pull up your guys' charts. We want to look at both Saturn and Jupiter. So I want you to find this in your design. It's going to look like this, kind of like a sickle or an H. This is a 4, this is an H. And this is actually my chart. So I have the 5.5. That's the rhythmic. So post in the chat, what is your Saturn activation on the personality side?
And it's funny, when you look at it, it almost looks like a 4 upright and a 4 like on the other side. So I don't know if this the 4 in the tarot, that's the emperor, right? So the first one is the emperor that's sitting upright, and the other one is the emperor upside down, taking all the responsibility so that he can't really even manage.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to mention too in the chat, some of you were saying that you have the Jupiter activation was the same. It will often either be the same or it will be one gate, like it will be the gates right next to each other. So the 42 for me is next to the third gate if we look at the Rave Mandala wheel. So you're going to see it's going to be super close. And that also, it's because Jupiter's orbit it takes a long time for it to move. Or no, does he go? Yeah, it takes a long time for it to move. So anyways, a lot of people might share similar activations if they're born around the same time, just because these outer planets as we get to Pluto, that's more generational. So everybody born in that year tends to have the same. And then as we move outward in these gaseous giants, they're going to be similar for other people as well. It's the ones that are closest to the sun that move faster.
So Jupiter is 12 years and then Saturn is 30 years. And then keep in mind as well that planets go retrograde. So then it's even possible that on the wheel, you're going to have on one side, your Saturn or your Jupiter is going to be further on in the wheel than on the person. Like it should be that the one that came first, the imprint of the design, is later on in the wheel. But sometimes when they retrograde, you're going to see the opposite, or you're going to see exactly the same again.
Okay. So just like we were asking why wouldn't we follow our law? Why do we waver in following our law? We have these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn is, it can be the judge, it can be the teacher. It kind of plays along with Jupiter. If you're not following your law, it's going to quote unquote punish you. And we'll kind of unpack what punish means in a little bit. But there are all sorts of reasons why we aren't going to be following our law. But if you were part of our freedom flight journey with Sovereign, then you are familiar with these shadow archetypes that we introduced. And I'm not going to go into the complete explanation of these, but there's all sorts of reasons why we would, forego our own law and what's true and right for us for the sake of the other, or consensus or status quo. So the good girl or boy archetype, they're going to not follow their law because they're going to listen to somebody else's law, because they're going to be telling them what's right and correct. And they just want to be a good boy or a good girl. So they're just going to follow the law, even if it is contradictory to their own. So because in a way, they don't really understand what their law is, because they haven't really developed this sense of ego to grasp it, to understand it. And then the sidekick archetype is this one has a sense of ego. It's developed its sense of self and identity, and it still is playing the sidekick role where somebody else is kind of in charge of it. It's serving another person. So it's going to follow and maybe even be very sensitive to other people's laws and help support them in following their laws. So they'll sacrifice themselves for the other. And then that prosperity, that expansion, it's not for them, but they are so good at developing it and expanding it and doing it for other people, but they'll sacrifice themselves. Did you want to speak about the other two and maybe why they would waver, Bella?
Definitely. So the lone wolf is so focused on being independent and hyper independent. So a lot of that can be to even just survive. And they are kind of outside of society in some way because they're lacking connection. And there is something with our law. We're not supposed to actually just live our law and not be connected to other people. So without connection, it's actually really hard to live out the qualities of that Jupiter that you have in your chart. You need to be connected. We are here as one human organism, and the lone wolf is kind of getting off, and he says, oh, freedom or nothing. And he is afraid of connection, because all these are shadow archetypes. So some of us resonate with being a lone wolf, but this is really the shadow expression of that. And then the pressure cooker has too much to lose. So if the pressure cooker is following the law, that would mean that some of the things that they have been able to accumulate, especially in terms of material things, and the ladder that they have been able to climb in terms of their title and where they live in the city, what neighborhood, if they are really going to live their truth and live by that law, things would fall apart. And the pressure cooker doesn't really want that. That's why he has so much pressure. She has so much pressure, because she wants to have everything that she was able to have in consensus, like just by looking at the status quo. And she's not really willing to start to live from the heart, from the soul, from the law.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully those are relatable. They're meant to be relatable archetypes that you can kind of see yourself falling into. You may identify with one or another. We do have the Sovereign Freedom Flight Masterclass that is in post-production. It's almost ready. We'll be putting that out. You guys can purchase that. That was a 3-4 hour masterclass where we went in deep into these archetypes. It's so beneficial to do that archetypal exploration and discovery work, because when you can work with these, guess what? We're going to come into sovereignty, and in sovereignty, we follow our law, and we utilize Saturn as this support that's going to help us expand. Because when we get to our comfort zone, Saturn's going to come in and like, you got more to learn. You got more to grow. Like, let's come in here. So it's going to come in to help you stay on track and on purpose with your law, because it's also how you're going to live your legacy. You're going to leave your legacy here through all of the expansion and growth you have, and then obviously leaving something for those that you leave behind and those that you interact with. It doesn't need to be a tangible structure or thing that you bring to the world. So yeah, Saturn is structure, limitation, also focus, discipline. It is going to be associated with Capricorn, I believe, right? Capricorn, with the structures and stuff like that. Yeah, so you can feel into that Capricornian energy and the Sagittarius energy, kind of see how they play together to really create expansion and abundance on the physical plane. They're not messing around, right? They're gonna do what they need to do.
And one more thing here connected to this, why do we waver in following our law? When we are in those archetypes, we're kind of busy living up an identity, being in the status quo, following the rules, or the lone wolf that's kind of completely disconnected. So we usually don't even know our law. We probably haven't found human design, and we haven't started the experiment. So that's also why in our human design and in our gene keys, there's so many qualities. So how do we even know what's our law? Because there's going to be things that you resonate with in your life's work, in your evolution, your moon, like all these things. So there is also huge to actually be part of, you know, a community like this, where we have those tools that with a few words or a few paragraphs, you can understand more about what is it that wants to be expressed through you, through this expansive planet, and also what actually say, what is that kind of lifelong more challenge and structure that you're going to be asked to come back to, and instead of being like, oh, I'm here again, actually say, oh wow, this is something I'm really here to learn, and this is something that I'm taking responsibility for, to walk this path in my life and to become more mature, because that's really with Saturn, we do become more mature.
Mm. Mm. They are your allies. You just have to know how to understand your coding so that you can live it, so that you can follow it. And not only that, I mean, we utilize gene keys because gene keys and human design, we work epigenetically. You're not set with this structure. It's not solid. It's not rigid. And we have shadow expressions, and we're here to dig into them, to transform them, to grow from them so that we can get into these gift frequencies. And we are not a victim to our genetics. We get to literally reprogram ourselves. So this is an opportunity for you to understand, you know, what is your law? What are you here to live by? And what are the rules, quote unquote, that you follow? And how can you use these planets to support, these planetary activations to support you? Okay. Oh, shit on your shoulds. That, AKA, that means don't listen to others. We have our own inner authority. We have our own coding. We have our own program. We have our own design. And so we need to just follow ourselves, our soul, our guidance, our inner guidance. And I think that we desperately, like we've learned in the Freedom Flight with Sovereign, we want to belong. We want kinship, we want community, but we don't want homogenization. We want differentiation. And we need to learn how to know ourselves, know thyself innately. And then you can come to the world and co-create with it. So yeah.
Yeah, so both the shoulds of your mind is just telling you things that's not actually from your strategy authority, and the shoulds from the outside. You should do this, you should do this. So the ones from your mind and the ones from the outside. And maybe there are some shoulds from the heart, but I don't really think there are shoulds. I think that they are more like, oh, I get to, and then you're actually doing it. And that's how I feel that Jupiter is starting to express through us. Oh, I get to. And, you know, you, like for me, I have the daredevil. I get to be the daredevil. I get to like go to that risk and see what happens, you know. So it's more something you get to do as you find the courage to do it, because people are going to react. And Ashley and I are going to take a few examples before we go into charts, how people were like saying, oh, why is Bella doing this? Why is Ashley doing this? And it was about living our law. So it's not always aligned with others, but really what we need to learn to do is to co-live and to have a new understanding and to set up things in a new way so that we all can follow our law. That's what hasn't been possible before, and that's where why some people go off and be lone wolves, because they are saying we can't do it together, so I'm just going to do it by myself. But that's not the way of doing it either. And for me, that's why it's so beautiful with human design, that we get to be who we are, and we get to actually love each other as who we are, instead of trying to change somebody to become another aura type, another life's work, another whatever it is that is our preference. It's not about preference, it's about truth.
You get to be you. And you do not need to hold anyone else responsible or accountable for living your law. You're responsible for living your own law. So it's not about, I think that's where we get kind of confused sometimes, as we get into these, we start to understand who we are, and we think, you know, when we're in this egocentric thinking, we think like everyone thinks like me, everyone acts like me, everybody is me. But we're here to learn empathy, and we're here to be able to understand that everybody's differentiated. We're different. And so we're not here to hold anyone else to our own standard. We're here to know what our standard is. And when we drop standard, it's nobody's fault but our own. Everybody else is just living their own law. Let them be, let them live, let them do them, and you do you. And here we can learn that beautiful dance of coming together and honoring, you know, that each person's design and what somebody feels and experiences as prosperous and abundant, another person wouldn't. So we can't make these generalizations that life would be simple if we just all followed one law, one rule, but it's a little bit more complex than that. You know, we have this overarching, like, be a good person, but really, what does that mean to be a good person? That's kind of more subjective. So here you need to shit on the shoulds of what your mind is telling you, what other people are telling you, and like surrender to the heart, to the body, to the currents that are moving you forward on the trajectory of this life that you're living. And you'll be fine.
And actually, I can even like intuit in the energy that some of you are going to have your Jinky chart. You're going to look at that pearl and you're going to be like, what? And you're not going to actually connect with the pearl because that's the conscious Jupiter. And that means that there is some actually work to do, some cracking through, so that comes natural for you, because that's really part of your essence, your legacy that you're here to embody. So start to connect with that pearl and start with, like, where have I ever expressed this? Where have I ever like embodied this? Because probably there is somewhere in your childhood or somewhere where you were not conditioned to not be you, that actually came out. But sometimes Ashley and I together, we look at charts, and we have sometimes readings that are recorded readings. We don't get to see the person, and we have this long intake form, and we're like, what's happening? I want to see this person. I want to shake this person. They are like, where's the law in their life? And sometimes we have to tell people we can't even do the reading because we actually need to see them to make sure that they are not living on some outside shoulds, but they're actually willing to come back, and that we can guide them to do that. So I can feel that for some of us, it's still like this thing between us and that, but this needs to go away so that we can align with what's there for us, our inner qualities.
All right. Okay. Here's another question. Does Jupiter only amplify the good things? We're going to get into mythology here too, but do you want to kind of take us into that amplification and how that works, Bella?
Well, anything. And I mean, this is kind of law of attraction, and I never like to speak about law of attraction in the kind of traditional way. Just think about something, like think about big boobs, and then tomorrow you're going to wake up with big boobs. Like that's kind of a stupid thing, right?
So it was that easy.
Exactly. So, but really, when we go back to those archetypes, the pressure cooker, if you are compartmentalizing and you're like wanting to keep all these things, and you say one thing to one person, one thing to another, and then you go do ayahuasca like hidden in the weekend, like, you know, like it's going to amplify in your life that stress of like having to tell different people different things. It's just going to be more and more and more pressure, and then it's going to even often come into the physical body as unease or disease. So whatever is there that you are engaging with the energy with, it's going to amplify. And Jupiter is really good at doing that. So especially when we are looking at those things that are connected to your own Jupiter, if you're not following your law, you know, like Jinkies, the shadow frequency is going to be really big for me with the 28. If I'm not following my law, I'm going to wake up feeling like my soul is dying, usually, because the 28 is existential. And when I am not on purpose, when I'm not the daredevil, it feels like there's no purpose, and my life is just going away, and I'm going to die without having lived. And that's definitely how it feels. So it's important to put our energies, whether we are generators, manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, like it's very important, manifestors more than anything, you know, it's very important that we use our energy wisely and know that where we put that energy, that life force, that love, that's what's going to grow. It's the fuel that we're putting in.
Jupiter's going to amplify what you are. Yeah. So you're going to get that reflection in your world, in your life. And like Bella was saying, she's going to wake up feeling purposelessness. My Jupiter is 3.2. I'm going to wake up in chaos. I'm going to feel the chaos of life and be like, when is this ever going to end? Is it ever going to get organized? Like, I just feel like everything's a mess. Everything's up in the air. And if I'm in the shadow of it, I'm going to be reacting to the chaos. Bella's going to be reacting to the purposelessness, and it's going to amplify. It's like what you focus on expands, and you can't help but expand these Jupiter activations. So I'm going to notice the chaos, the mess, the stuff here that needs to be sorted out and organized. And I'm going to want to get into the details and all of that stuff. And it's going to, I mean, it's going to amplify. Like, just look at what your activation is and look at the shadow frequency and just think about a time in your life when that was amplified, because it is what's important to you. It's your law. So you're going to be noticing it. It's going to be blaring in front of you. And what you notice is not going to be what somebody else notices. And so that's where the difference is. And you may freak out about experiencing that shadow aspect because you can't accept it. You're rejecting it, whatever it is. You need to hurry up and get through it. But other people won't feel the same way.
And there's something here where maybe I would even edit this quote a little bit, saying Jupiter amplifies what you're playing with, because that's kind of that God with Zeus. It's like you are the God of the heavens, and whatever you're playing with, that's actually, again, where the energy goes and what you're amplifying. So for him, having kids everywhere, it's like that was what he was playing with, and that amplified, and now all the gods almost their father is Zeus.
Okay. Next. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to me when I don't follow my law? On an everyday basis, your body, environment, and relationships suffer when you do not follow your law. It's amazing, its ability to just like permeate every single area of your life. It is big, and it's going to be the biggest thing for you. And like we were saying, I mean, it works with Saturn, so you're going to be experiencing it in conjunction with Saturn. You're going to be feeling when you are in that expansive, it's going to feel expansive, or it's going to feel constricting and limiting. But that's when we know that we're in reaction to something. That's when we know Saturn's kind of coming in to give us some of that shadow expression, to see like, oh, okay, I'm not living my law. Something's a little bit off. I'm not in alignment. What is happening here? How am I not seeing things? Like sometimes it's a perspective shift. We get stuck in the shadows as long as we are pushing it away, rejecting it, and just like agitated in it.
Yeah, and with this quote, I definitely feel the combination of the pearl and the culture in the gene keys, and the design and the personality Jupiter, because there is something with the pearl and the personality Jupiter that's like the overall law, the legacy, what you're here to live out, the essence of that. But when we go down here on an everyday basis, we're looking at the environment, relationships, body, we're much more tying in that design side to it as well. So it actually counts. You're here to follow the guidelines, if we don't want to use the word law, that are here illuminated by your personality Jupiter and also your design Jupiter.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess this is a question that I feel like we are all looking at. Sometimes we're wondering, abundance in terms of prosperity, in terms of people getting like all these things that they want. Like, is it about alignment? Is it about being a good person? Like, how are these people getting all sorts of money and doing it in a questionable way? Like, what's happening here? Like, how do I get that? How do I unlock that? I know that in the gene keys, when everyone finds out that the pearl is the prosperity sequence and it's about liberating your prosperity, they're like, oh, how do I get to that? How do I get over there? I want to go into, tell me about my pearl. Tell me about this. I want to know how to, once I liberate my prosperity, everything will fall into place. It'll all be good. And it's not usually the case. It's not the chicken before the egg. Like it's like, we do the work and we expand and we claim more abundance into our life. And I feel like abundance doesn't have to reflect or represent, how aligned we are, how expanded, how evolved we are. It's like, how content are you with this abundance? Like, what state of being do you have? Because that doesn't reflect anything on your ability to claim abundance. Is like, oh, I'm a good person, I'm in alignment. No, it's not like that. Like Bella said, money is not about morals, it's about mechanics.
Yeah, and one simple way of explaining that it is to go to the line of your personality, Jupiter, and see what Ashley was alluding to before. If you have a first line, it's about simplicity. A first line often thinks that money is like just something too complex. They just want to live in simplicity. And if they could live without money, they would maybe even be happier. And then the second line is maybe more about recognition. They are prosperous, but they are recognized. The third line was to celebrate life. So if somebody else is paying for the celebration, they don't have any money. It's not about money, it's about celebration. That's how they feel rich. And the fourth line is about sharing and about that kind of even charity to share with others and to be shared with. And then the fifth line, we everywhere there's a fifth line is more about management and a little bit more about power. So maybe here, that's where money comes in. We actually need some cash to be able to feel empowered as a fifth line. And then the sixth line, in a way, transcends it all. But it can also have resonance with, depending on how the rest of the mechanics in the chart look, where actually one of the lines is really important. So maybe it's resonating with the third line. So maybe it wants to have money and it's going to create something in the world where everybody can celebrate because it has that transpersonal quality to it as well. So that's one way of looking at how money is about mechanics and not about morals. But I'm also, of course, looking at your body graph and how the energy is moving. You can also see that if you are a generator and you have a split like me, for example, with the throat and the G, if I'm living from my throat and my G and I'm not coming down into the part of my body graph where I have my inner authority, where I have my aura type coming from, like, am I going to create abundance? Probably not, because I'm living from the not self, trying to be a guiding or a fluffy, projector here. But actually, first and foremost, I need to function for me, for my mechanics as a sacral generator. I need to be that being in flow, in response, and then the mechanics can start to work for me. So it's not about morals. It's not about one way of doing it. It's not even just about looking at one place in your chart. It's really about the mechanics of your chart and becoming you in alignment with that unique and divine blueprint that you came here into when the planets were in a very specific place for you to live out a very specific life and beauty and amazingness and expansion.
Yeah, when you're living in the low frequency of the Jupiter activation, it's going to expand that. When you're in flow and you're in alignment with yourself, it's going to amplify that. So more alignment, more flow, more reciprocity, more celebration, more of the stuff. It's like the amplification isn't limited to only the good things, even though Jupiter's benefic and it's lucky and it has all these great positive qualities. It's still going to amplify what is there. What, like Bella said, what are you playing with? Okay, let's go back to Saturn. Some of you are like chomping at the bit about the Saturn stuff because I know we brought in Saturn here. Is Saturn punishing me? Saturn is about the limitation and the growth. It's the teacher. It's here to help you learn these lessons on Earth. I mean, we talk about, Saturn return lots of time. There's crisis that comes when we become 28, 27, 29, whenever our Saturn return is, and we start to live out this theme until we have our next Saturn return, where we are, we're learning things. And so you have your Saturn activation that's like overarches your whole life. This is something that you carry with you for your whole life, not just these life cycle activations you have, but you can start to see, just by thinking about when you turn 28, what happened in your life, because that's like the big event. And so that'll give you some kind of tangible, like amplified experience of, oh, okay, what happened during this time, but when we're looking at living our law, we're also looking to Saturn because they work together in harmony. And Saturn punishing you is all about perspective, because Saturn's not here to be bad, to be punishing, to be judging. It's here to support you. It's here to help you live your law. So it's actually here for, a positive, for the positive, not for like, I just need to punish you. I'm angry. I'm an angry old man and I'm just going to like whip you. Like, I'm here to punish. No. Would you say anything else about Saturn and its qualities and maybe why it's here besides what I said?
It takes some maturity and being able to hold quite a lot to see why Jupiter that wants to expand, Saturn that kind of wants to set the structure and the responsibility, and then Uranus that's beyond all that. Like when we see these different planets and qualities in our body graph, in our astrology, it can be like, oh, but there's such a conflict. But really what we're learning as we are going into this work of deconditioning is that all these things can actually live in us, and to understand again the mechanics. It's so important to understand the mechanics, and there are so many misconceptions and misunderstandings out there, and that's really why in Unlock Your Design we're weaving Gene Keys, human design, and astrology, because then it's like we have to test one thing against, well, three of them, and then we actually know that we are not just making something up. So really what's happening with looking at Saturn and Jupiter is somehow they're holding each other in check in some way. They are part of the mechanics, and they can live together, but it takes some willingness to see how do they work together. And actually what I would say here is Saturn is very good at for you to have awareness of to gauge when aren't you following your law, because Saturn is not going to be quiet. That shadow frequency, that quality that's in Saturn, in the not self, is going to be present in your being, in your vessel, in your environment when you're not following your law. So when that comes, say thank you, and then look at Jupiter and be like, how can I embody you more?
Mm-hmm. It's so awesome when Saturn knocks at your door, because when you start to get used to and familiarized with the activation that you have personally, you're going to just notice, be like, oh, Saturn's here. Oh, look at what's here. And we can work with that. We can utilize that energy. But when you don't have awareness, then how can you change? You're just resisting that feeling. Like if I have the 5.5, that impatience is going to come in. And if I'm not recognizing it as that Saturn energy, I'm going to always like just try to hurry up and like get to the other side, or like, you know, whatever's happening, however I react to the 5. But there is a gift in patience. There is a gift in entering that state of timelessness for me. But it's not possible when all I know how to do is operate in the shadow. So of course I'm always going to be like, they're not fast enough, or this or that, or whatever story I say about the shadow, then I'm going to feel like, you know, life, why does life keep bringing me like more, like you got to wait more, or this is going to take forever, or whatever the story is. It's so different in different situations. Just like you'll notice, because it's not like Saturn shows up in one area of your life. It's all areas, and it has a minutia of like different expressions. So it's about exploring that and recognizing when Saturn comes a knockin'. Because oftentimes Saturn's gift is going to be disguised as a curse, and you're going to be like, Saturn's punishing me, and just feeling like it's you know, not a gift. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just today, so Ashley was showing us her example, and here, so if my Saturn is the 57, and that's the gift of unease, so whenever unease is knocking on my door, then I know that there is something for me to explore. And also knowing, because that 57 is a Libra gate, so then to know that for me, life is sometimes going to feel like there is no balance, there is no harmony, and especially because that Libra is the relationship with the other, in the outer, there's going to feel like there is unease and no balance, and maybe no reciprocity even in that relationship with the other. So when I feel that, there is something for me to look at. And this is something that probably will come back, and like Ashley said, in different ways. And most of us have at least 2-3 Saturn returns, because it's every 29-30 years, right? So we have the time to actually even have that accentuation of Saturn. And it's in a way a lifelong thing where we are feeling the limits and also going beyond the limits, and we are maturing, and we are becoming able to hold more. But that's not, again, the only thing we do. We're also responsible of actually embodying the law of Jupiter. So this is, again, there's not just one thing that you're here to do. It's the beauty of being able to embody as much as possible of your unique blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this says when Jupiter's law is away, the victim comes out into play. This is only the case if you are feeling like, just like Mercury retrograde. Oh, Mercury retrograde. It's like if we are blaming something outside of us, we're not taking responsibility. And so the victim can come out. And if you're familiar with the gene keys, right, we have the different victim. The victim comes out of the shadow. And so you can look at your shadow and see what kind of victim tendency do you have. And when Jupiter's law is away, Jupiter's never actually away. It's just if you're not following your law and you're being punished and you feel like, why is life always punishing me? Why am I always this and that? And having all these stories about how you're a victim, you're not going to come into creatorship where you can have the most amount of expansion in your life. You're just going to expand the fact that something's always coming out to punish you and you're always getting in trouble and you're always this and that and nothing's ever working out for you. And so that's what's going to amplify. And so how do you want the universe to pay you? You decide on the currency you get paid. And so sometimes it's with shit, because you've got your shoulds. And so then you get your shit. And I think that's what you have to discern is like when you put your cup out to be paid, what's the universe giving you back? Because that's what you're saying. You're saying, yep, I'll take more of that, please. I'm going to still play the victim. So here, keep delivering this to me because I love the role of the victim. Some people get a high and get off by being the victim. It's like their kink. And they're like, why am I in this? Well, because I like to be saved and I like there to be somebody that I'm blaming and I want to stay the victim so I can play small because I'm actually really scared of my light. I'm really scared of my expansion. I'm really scared of actually showing up and stepping up and being a leader. So I'd rather just be the victim. And I don't want to live my law because I don't want to take responsibility because it's easier to just be this and to complain.
And also that has to do with the shadow dynamics that we often see, for example, in our purpose and our attraction. Those things that are always going to be relived. It's more safe to take on that same trauma that you were living in your childhood than living something new. And this is, again, why do we need to do the work in the Venus? Because Venus is the launch pad, like Venus sequence, or we can say the SQ and the core. These are the connection points up into the pearl. So if we haven't done the inner work, we are consciously or unconsciously going to live out those victim stories and create more of it. And then we're going to be in the shadows everywhere in the pearl sequence, everywhere in the outer planets, because they can't really create anything different than us just going in those closer planets or inner planets, Venus and Mars, the inner imbalance that's never going to be in sacred union. It's always going to be in friction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Woo! Before we take any examples, how do you feel about all of this? Do you have a little bit of clarity? It might make a little bit more sense as we're weaving things so you can see the dynamics. Where are you at? How are you enjoying this? I know some of you are posting in the Q&A like, tell me about this and that, and here's my specific Saturn or my specific Jupiter. We're going to get into examples, but it helps to have a chart because if you single out and limit your perspective to just Jupiter and Saturn, you're not looking at the holistic view and representation of your chart, of your energy and how it works. Like, what if Saturn is a hanging gate? What if it's a channel? What if like blah, blah, blah? We have all these different components and it helps to unpack it because it's not enough to say my Saturn's this and my Jupiter's this. It's like really helpful to have the chart. And that's what we're going to do is go into the weaving so that you can see how the mechanics works. Because remember, it's not about money. Money is not about morals. It's just mechanics. So really, it's helpful for you to understand how you work. You're a unique car. You're a unique vehicle. And you don't have like, some of you have a push button. Some of you have a key. Some of you have to like turn all these knobs. Like you can be super complicated or super simple. It's just like understanding your mechanics helps you know how you operate and what kind of fuel you put in your vehicle. So yeah, all these metaphors.
Yeah, I would say it's all about geometry. And sometimes we need to look at the wheel to understand the geometry with conjunctions and oppositions and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's the body graph that shows us how are we touching the world with our energy, what comes in. And sometimes in the gene keys, the keynotes are just so amazing, especially in the Venus work. We're like, oh yeah, that's my lifelong story, similar to with Saturn. So the geometry is important. And here we can, in the examples, we're not going to be so long in our examples, but just some of the things with my chart is that you already know that I have the daredevil archetype, which is my Jupiter. What helps me is that my conscious moon is also the 28th. The conscious moon is our subjective reality, we could say, or our instinctive awareness. And it's also connected to the nurturing we had as children. So it's something that's connected to our need. I need this. If I don't have this, then I don't feel nurtured. So because I have that need with the moon in the 28 is also going to connect with my law or my Jupiter. And of course, Jupiter is shining on my moon because it's expanding everything. So for me, that 28 is going to be super accentuated. So if I don't get to be that daredevil, if I don't get to play or celebrate in that third line, then I'm going to feel very much unease. And that 57.2 in my Saturn, I'm not going to feel reciprocity. If you don't want to play with me, if you don't want to go anywhere deep, the 28 is a Scorpio gate. If you don't want to go into deep waters of a Scorpio, then I'm not going to feel reciprocity most of the time. Then we're not really going to resonate. And this is when I said, you know, I'm criticized sometimes because I've heard, oh, now Bella is going to drag us down, you know, in the Scorpio energy again, or like drag us around the block in her darkness. And, you know, for me, there's a purpose because once we've gone there, there is something new in that rebirth and that transformation of Scorpio as we dare to go there. And the last thing I want to say about the weaving in my chart here is that my core wound is also the 57. So every time that I'm not following my law and I go into that Saturn of unease, it's just like right going to my core wound. And then it also weaves in that fourth line of not being able to be gentle, not being able to like feel like heart can even breathe. So that are some of the mechanics just by starting that you can do with your own chart. And we're going to look at some of your charts today, but for those of you that we don't have time to go into, you know, look at what's conjunct, what's together, where else in your chart do you have that Jupiter? Where else do you have that Saturn? What is the quality of the other planet you have it? If it's your South Node, for example, you're going to know it so well. So maybe then it's not so hard to live your law if it's Jupiter. But if it's Saturn, you're like, oh my God, this lesson, I don't know if I've learned it yet. I've probably lived it for 50 lives already.
Yeah. And if you're like super new to this and you could, cause great, like, okay, my Jupiter, like Bella's Jupiter 28.3, but she's brand new to this. What the hell does 28 mean? And what is this 0.3? Just start with the 28. And like we said, we created a whole resource library called the 64 Doors. You can go to unlockyourdesign.com or the 64doors.com and it'll take you right to where the archetypes are. You go and find 28, click on it, read it, understand what the daredevil is, understand what the intuitive is, and you'll be able to understand about your law. If you need a recap of this, Jupiter is your law. This is the law you follow. Saturn is helping you follow your law. It's going to come in to give you that constriction, to give you that limitation, to make you feel that unease, to make you feel that impatience, to make you feel whatever it is that activation is for you. And like Bella said, if you see these numbers repeat in your chart, it just means it's that much stronger for you. And if you can unpack and understand about these different planetary activations, it helps you decode things. So that's why Bella and I, we have been doing this for years. We know how to decode it because we understand what the planets mean, the lines mean, the gates mean. We know what the body graph, like what is like the centers it in, the channels. It's a whole system. So if you're new, be gentle with yourself and just know, okay, let's just start here. What is my law? Don't even worry about Saturn. What is my law? Go look it up on the 64 Doors. Orient yourself with the archetype. That's the best advice that I can give you, to take it one step at a time, because we're very advanced and some of the stuff we're talking about is advanced, but we're here to meet you at whatever level you're at. So just know that we're here to support you if you need help.
Two general things that can help all of you. So in my case, both my 28 and my 57 are in a defined center, a very defined center, that splenic center that you can see. So really, this is a theme for me that's going to be inconsistent. It's going to be consistently activated through my life. And it's partly also with how I touch the world. I touch the world through that 28. I touch the world through that 57. It's part of what you're going to feel in my energy, because everywhere we have a defined center is how the energy goes out from the body graph and touches the world. If you have your Jupiter and your Saturn open centers, it's still an activation that's alive there, but it's not consistent. It's going to depend on other people in your life. It's going to depend on the transit. It's going to depend on the outside world, how those activations filter through you. So then it's even more important to know who are you around, what situations are you in, you know, because that is going to dictate maybe the transit. Like if Pluto goes into becoming the harmonic gate to your Saturn or to your Jupiter, and it's going to be there for a whole decade, you know, in that same thing, then you want to know that, because you're constantly going to have that activated. So really understand that if it's defined, it's your consistent energy touching the world. If it's open, you're filtering, and it depends on what you're filtering, how those energies are going to be activated. That's the first thing. And the second thing, we put this as well on that landing page, and this is, it says summary of the 6 lines. This is on right now on my wall. I posted it this morning, and it's a summary from the Gene Keys of the 6th line that just tell us some keywords about each line. So again, if you're new and you have 28.3, you can actually look at the 28 and the 64 doors. You can go into the summary and you can see that the line 3 has to do with adaptation, discovery, energy and experience, joyous, humble, wise. And you can see a few of the qualities that's there that are connected then for you in terms of that line with your Jupiter.
Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna skip mine for a moment. If we need to come back to my example, we can. But I did speak about it a little bit. The only thing that I'll say about my law, in short, is that this is the eternal child. It's here to take and transform that chaos, innovate with it, and return to innocence. That means that I'm also here to not do anything the same. Like, I can't just structure something, keep it the same. I have to continually tear it down, put it back together, tear it down, put it back together. I posted a thing on my Instagram about my desk and how it goes from order to chaos, back to order again. I have this pulse, and that's how I expand. I can't stay with the same. Like, I'm going to be able to dance with the mess, to dance with the chaos, but it always ends up coming back to order, because that's what the 3 does, right? And it's here in this channel of mutation. I'm waiting for this pulse. I don't have this whole channel. When it comes, man, there's change happening. And that's when I know I need to rearrange my furniture. Like, I can palpably feel that my office needs to change, my house needs to change, my life needs to change, my business inner workings need to change. And so I can feel that. And the second line is like, I love to co-create and have that mirroring with another. So I love to work with people like Bella. This is the longest standing partnership that I've had aside from my marriage, where we're co-creating and doing something fresh all the time. I need to innovate. I need to be in innocence. I need to be able to constantly, start new things. The 3 is also, I mean, it's not going to stay with the old structures. We're going to constantly morph and evolve things. So that growth and expansion needs to come. But with my Saturn, and I'm going into the explanation, I said I wasn't going to, but my Saturn comes in, and it's like, if we're sitting in the chaos, it makes me uncomfortable because it's amplified. It's the 5th line. I'm like, okay, how do we practically organize this mess, this chaos? It feels deeply uncomfortable sometimes to be in the chaos. And this gate is difficulty at the beginnings. But let me tell you, when you give a kid a pile of crap and say, play with it, they're going to make something cool out of it. You give them a box, they're going to make a spaceship. You give them a stack of Legos, they're not going to build the same thing every time. They're going to create, they're going to imagine, they're going to innovate. And it comes from this creative pulse and pressure they have. So I need to constantly be in this energy and adapt to when things need to fall apart or can fall apart. And then knowing that I have the capability to organize it, to bring it back into order. But it's just like the universe and the Big Bang, right? It's like disorder. And then all of a sudden planets and stars and things start to coalesce. There's self-organization happening. So I need to trust the mess. So in short. Okay. Now, before we get into charts, we've got a third dynamic we won't go into, but planet Venus is also a player in this whole Saturn-Jupiter dynamic, but we don't really have time to go into that. We will go into that and
also it would
later.
be more than anything not unconscious Venus, but conscious Venus, that has to do with our values. So just knowing that values and law and punishment go together. So it's not, the law is also needing to be connected to your values, Venus. And that's how you can really start to embody the higher frequencies as well of Saturn instead of being punished. So just a little parenthesis. There are going to be other possibilities to go into that further on.
Yes. Okay. So before we can go into the charts, so that we can take off these slides and get into the charts, I know that this was like your first go around with Jupiter and this activation. Bella and I, for the rest of the year, we're going to be running this program. It's called Sovereign Business Alchemy and Impact. We're taking you through 6 different journeys or quests. They're 5-week intensives. And the first intensive that we're going to go into is your expansion codes. So again, remember, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. This is going to be your guideline for expansion. We're going to go into your legacy activation and your protocol activation. We've already spoken about legacy today with Jupiter. So here we're going to really get into Jupiter and help you unpack and understand what are your codes for expansion? How do you live your law on a day-to-day basis? What should your life look like? What is the legacy you'll leave? And this is part of a larger journey called Business Alchemy, where we're going to go into these expansion codes. We're going to unpack things. We're going to go into our shadows and go into what's stuck, because in order to expand, you really need to move some energy. You need to shift some stuff. You need to shift your shit so that you can expand. If you're carrying too much stuff, you're going to be weighed down. We want you to expand. So it's time to transform. And so the purpose here is to know what your codes are, solve it et coagula, right? We're going to dissolve in order to recoagulate, re-emerge and come together, let go of what we don't need, you know?
And it's also very much about the conditioning in the sense that strategy and authority is important. And maybe the way that we've learned about it is feeling limiting. So kind of going back into that and say, what does it mean to live from my inner authority instead of living from my mind? That's super important. You can have all the keynotes. You can be a Gene Key guide or a human design analyst. But if you're not actually knowing what it is to be a passenger in your own vessel and you're living from your mind, nothing of this has any value whatsoever. So really what we're going to want to do is to not spark you. Like, we can do this today. I have the Scorpio activation, the Daredevil, and part of that intensity. Ashley's both Saturn and her Jupiter are fire activations. We can spark you today, but really, is that going to change your life? So really what we want to do in those intensives meeting twice a week is to make sure that we walk the talk, us and the people with us. So that's really the meaning of this, not just looking at the activations, but actually being able to have that accountability somehow that we are living our experiment, that we are deconditioning more and becoming more of what we really are.
Yeah, that's the intention and the purpose. So this is one of the 5-week journeys. It's the one that we start next week on the 13th of March. So this is where we're going to go into your expansion codes. Then we'll go into transformation codes and illumination codes. But for now, the invitation is for you to deepen your experience with those expansion codes with Jupiter. The investment is $747 for the 5 weeks. It's twice a week. It's very intense, very deep, and it's a whole process. It's not just like, what do you need to know? It's the embodiment. It's the application. This is about you taking it into your life, into your world, and actually utilizing it. So we're going to have that available for you. If you want to go through the whole business alchemy journey, you're going to save a little bit. You're going to save quite a bit of money by doing that. And that way you can be part of those 15 weeks. And so you can be part of expansion codes, transformation codes, and illumination codes. Do you want to clarify or say anything else about this, Bella?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
I mean, it's a completely different experience. And we haven't really, like, it's a little bit what we have done with Business by Design, but that was once a week and it didn't have the same kind of, again, accountability and practical implementation. So I have no idea what we're going to create here, but I know that so many people have done the activation sequence work and the Venus work. So I think this is where we're ready to go. And this is where we're going to go. We're going to dare to go there.
Take off. Whee!
And this is where we're going to include, there are 20 different planetary points or active, points or planets that we're going to go into. That's more than we have in human design and in Gene Keys, because we're adding some astrological points that are super important. I just had a clubhouse. You can re-listen to it about midheaven. It's super important. If you want to expand in the world and you don't know what was the highest point in the sky when you were born and what Gene Key that is, like, hello, like that's super important. That is what you're here to be recognized for. So you need to know your midheaven in order for you to actually be fully expressed, especially when it comes to, you know, creating abundance, because people are going to pay you for what you're here to be recognized for. So these are just some of the things where we're going beyond the gene keys, we're going beyond human design, and we have created this kind of tailor-made journey because we want to create more embodiment and more evolution at the same time, so that soul and spirit can meet and we can become that embodiment of soul and spirit in sacred union in our hearts, in our bodies.
Yes, yes, all yes. And we already have a group of people that are inside of our mastermind that is taking this whole journey throughout the whole year. That includes the 6 different quests that we're going on. So they're already inside the container. This is just if you want to do the intensive or the business alchemy, that's available for you. We have some bonuses too if you sign up in the next 48 hours. So expansion codes, you're going to get 2 months of the Inner Circle membership. This is going to help you move along in this journey as well, because we do follow the transits. We have the transit calls. We also have Spark of Creativity container and open space, and Bella does her Unlock Genius on Clubhouse. So you can join that. Walking the Wheel and the Unlock Genius are available to the public, but the Inner Circle does get the replay for these. As well as this, you're going to get 2 archetype embodiment courses. Those are the ones that we have in the academy. So it's going to help you deepen your exploration with these expansion codes. It's more than just is on the website, which is a beautiful plethora of information about the archetypes. Those embodiment courses actually have like in-depth teachings and many, many different resources, ways to embody it so that you can really get into the energy of your Jupiter activations, which is what we're going to be diving into. And we're going to also, we're going to meet, you know, twice a week. So we have a lot of time together to really dig into this. And so that we can start to embody it and work with it somatically so that we can feel it, not just know it or think it. It's about feeling it moving in your body. And in order for you to expand, you really need to have it like brought down deep inside of your being. You have to know it intimately.
And also the fact we see in the Q&A all these questions about individual charts, and today we're going to have time with, we have like 8 charts that we saved. I don't think we're going to even have time with all of them. So the fact also that this is the price for people that are kind of ready to step up to investing in themselves, that's also, we're going to be smaller groups than we usually are. Usually in our immersions, we have 30 people or 50 people. Last time we did Business by Design, we had 50 people. So that's the beauty as well. Ashley and I are going to be able to just take your chart and weave, because we are in those 10 times, or yeah, at least 10 times that we're meeting, we have that possibility to be more personal and to actually poke and provoke a little bit for liberation and for alignment, for in a personal way that we can't do here on a webinar, of course.
Yeah, poke and provoke for the purpose of expansion and transformation. Here's the Business Alchemy bundle. Here you're going to get 5 months of the Inner Circle membership and 8 archetype embodiment courses included. So that's a $660 value. These are going to expire on the 9th of this month at 11:59 p.m. So if you already know that you want to do it, we'll post a link in the chat. Also, there'll be an email going out to our list if you're part of our list. And what the page that the replay is going to be on, this link will be on there as well. And we'll get the replay up really quickly. But after I'm done sharing, I'll grab the link and just post it in the chat if you guys are ready. But otherwise, if you're super sleuths, you're probably already on our academy.unlockyourdesign.com page and you've already found it and you have it in your cart. So we look forward to having you join this immersion with us. And I think that's about it. I don't
The
really
very
have
last thing about that would just be, if you don't know that you only want to do this one thing and you actually think that maybe the whole thing is for you or the half thing is for you, I would say take the opportunity to speak with Ashley, because she has been speaking with people that knew that they wanted to do more than just a 5-week thing, because it's very much worth it to start in the beginning of the journey and not half a year in say like, oh, I wanted to do this, but how do I know it? How do I do it if I missed the opportunity from the beginning? So take that opportunity. Ashley usually doesn't open up for conversation about a lot of things. So that's, yeah, contact her if you think that maybe this journey not beyond the 5 weeks is for you. It's still possible to join the whole thing. And that's also a much more intimate container with a handful of people that are coming through the whole thing with us.
Yes. And there's a payment plan too for both the Business Alchemy, and the expansion codes. And then if you join Sovereign, which is the whole mastermind experience, that is that includes this all plus more. That's you can reach out to me. But let's do charts. So like I said, we're kind of wrapped up with the main thing at 75 minutes. We're going to take some time to go into charts. So however long you can stay would be beautiful. If we're reading your chart, it's awesome if we know that you're here. So yeah, awesome.
So here we have Sean, who's going through a Chiron return right now. And he's a 3-5 Sphinx, and he has a lot of energy here in the middle of the chart. And we can see that his Jupiter is the 10.2 and his Saturn is the 8.6. So here we have a law that's all about being you and being natural. It's individual circuitry in how do you say, integration channels. So here, the 10, the gate of self-love, the gate of naturalness. Ashley and I speak about that often because that's our purpose. And in the second line, you're here to be recognized for being you. So maybe you are in the wrong environment. Maybe you're not in the place where you have the most impact as a 3-5. So as a Sphinx, with this incarnation cross, you need to orient, and you have consistency to orient to where you can be recognized for your naturalness. And every time that you kind of wake up, like we said, and you feel kind of mediocre, there's like energy of like, you're not in creativity. You're not doing what you're here to express. You're not in your unique style. You're not an influencer, because really part of your lessons, or the curse that is actually not a curse, but a blessing, is that you're here to influence, and you're here to influence not in just one way. The sixth line is that transcendent quality. So you can influence in any of the kind of lines, and also beyond. And there is, with that 8, that's like where you're going to feel probably the most. I feel like you're going to feel frustration in the 10 that you can't be you, but really where it's going to hurt is more in the 8, in that feeling of like the gray, where there is no unique style and there is no creativity. And maybe not even anything fun to contribute to, because
look at all the,
we can't contribute.
Look at all the channels. He has all the channels going from the throat to the G center. And so there's going to be something like deeply personal about what it is you're offering to the world. And if anybody says they don't like it, it's going to hurt, because it's going to feel like they're rejecting you, because it comes from you, your identity, your core, your expression, and everything you do is so individual because of all the integration circuitry, like Bella said. So it's like, it's going to sting if you're not around the right people that can receive you. And you're here to create and consistently create something new, something epic. And I'm wondering too, like being a Sphinx and having your own direction and being a 3-5, it's like, what have you uncovered? What have you created? What are you offering to the world? What's your unique contribution? Because it's super fascinating to see like this dynamic in your chart. And like Bella said, like you're here to be naturally you, and just kind of like go with it, flow with it, and be known for the contributions that are kind of like out of this world, or past what we're currently in presently. Like if you're an influencer of bringing people into the future. And you can see how your North Node and South Node are that 4131 programming partner duo. That one is like, anticipating the future, feeling something new. And it's like the 31 is leadership. So it's like, and probably have been around leaders and leadership. It's what has contributed and shared to who you are and to your growth and your being. And so, even being around people who can tune into your needs or not, you have the 19.2. So it's like, what were you around? How were you reflected, like who you are? Did you get nourished and nurtured in the right way? Were your needs met? And like, are you remembering who you are? Like with so much individual circuitry, I'm hopeful that you have that direction and focus and that identity to be like, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. It's just about finding the people who want to go those places with you too.
Yeah, and just highlighting this theme of the future. The Sphinx is orienting towards the future. You have a North Node on both sides in Aquarius. The way you relate is also Aquarius. It's about the future. It's about new ways of doing it. That's what you're orienting with. And like Ashley's saying, you're doing it in your way, otherwise it's not fun. So a little bit also just a precaution here to not become the lone wolf, freedom or nothing. You know, like it's important to still be connected, because with all that Aquarius is doing it with people that have a similar vision. So you actually need to have allies that can see the same thing as you, and or at least interactions that are going to, at the 3-5, at least the interactions are going to nurture you to have the impact that you're here to have. And we see again, it doesn't come from your mind, it doesn't come from what you're, you know, how your mind is thinking it should be.
You're not here to know or be certain of anything.
It doesn't come from stress that you're already in your Chiron return. It doesn't come from avoiding anything. It comes from just being anchored in that middle pillar and having your own energy and creativity spark and being you in the world. And then that might have to be somewhere else. You will have to orient to the right community and environment.
Mm-hmm. Sean's funny. He says he's 51 with a purple mohawk. And then he said that he was a punished 3-5. He said, I was burned at the stake. And my parents were given steak sauce, not an owner's manual, but I love them. I love it. You're funny.
Okay, so let's go to this side.
Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Look at this. We had at least 3 or 4 reflectors, which is a lot in maybe the 25 charts that we had. So
Esther Powers, and she's the 5-1.
This is the cross of your husband, right?
Oh God, it is. Exactly. Exactly. I know when your birthday is, or around your birthday. June 5th is when he was born. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's see. What do we have for Jupiter? 35. 35.4, same as your sun, but the sun is in detriment. There's a little bit of a learning curve up in here. Then your Saturn is 33.6. You know, that's the medicine woman that's remembering in a 6th line. So it's like, what are we remembering in that 6th line? And with the 35, like this heroine, this hunger for adventure, like that cross is already hungry for adventure. And as a reflector, I'm sure like you're just taking in so much, you know, and so every day is an adventure for you with who you are interacting with and interpreting. It looks like 35.4. I don't know. What else do you see in here?
So I think you're born in like around 77 or something like that, with that Pluto in your in the 48. What I feel here is that there is a kind of not chaotic energy, but you know, that 35 can be hungry and can kind of go and trying to find on the outside. And of course, like Ashley's saying, when you're filtering so much, to think that the answer is on the outside, but really going back again here to being the heroine in your own movie. And then with the 33, you know, like it's important that life just doesn't feel like a lot of different experiences with no purpose. It is important that you understand, like, what is the medicine woman through you in the 33, and what are you here to remember? Because there's so much with that 3.5 2 times, and then the 35, like there's so much there. So how do you remember as a reflector who you really are? And here I would need to say, go back to your incarnation cross, because somehow that's the most potent things when everything is open and everything is filtering. So you're here to be the heroine in your own movie and being that powerfully, because your sun and your Jupiter are conjunct. So how much are you living out the archetype of the heroine? That's the number one thing that I would say. And then it's 5-1, it's super important to ground in your body and to have alone time. That's something I see with Ashley's husband, and I also see it with her. Like the 5th line needs alone time. You have all the center open, you need alone time. Otherwise, you're dishonoring yourself, and you're probably going to experience oppression in the world.
You need to empty. You have to empty. And if and with the 35.4, like constantly wanting to share and commune in community, like wanting to have adventure with other people, because also maybe with that taking in and filtering other people, different environments, you start to recognize who you are through the different interactions. But is it taking you away from remembering who you are? That's where we're going to have that retreat and that alone time, not only with the 33 being the gate of retreat, but like Bella said, with the 1st line, being able to let go of those things, because what are you going to be filtering? All of those open open centers. And if you have the 22, the way that the emotional wave comes through you is going to be in those highs and those lows. And maybe you can find a way to express it, to release it, to transmute it, but you're filtering for everybody that you come in contact with. And as a fifth line, there's going to be a projection field as well of who you're supposed to show up with. But you're here to, with that completely open G, like Bella says, like live many different love stories. You're here to be different people with many different people. And part of the adventure is you being a different you in whoever you interact with. And that's the beauty of the adventure of your life. And I think that this whole journey externally is going to eventually put you internally to be like, who am I? And remembering that in your aloneness, when you are outside of the aura of other people, filtering other things, it's important for you to have your own space so that Saturn's going to always remind you, do you remember? Do you remember who you are? Let's look past and look back at these experiences you've had, because it's part of the collective sensing circuit. It's here to live out these experiences and then reflect to extract the medicine. The only way you're going to extract the medicine is by going into your aloneness. So that's how Saturn's going to it's going to remind you, hey, I think you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting to come back to yourself. You're so fixated on what's going to fill you and help you feel more anchored, help you feel more stable. You're not here to be stable. You're here to orient with the chaos. You're here to organize the chaos. So every moment is a new adventure for you if you can accept the chaos of this world, because it's going to change you. It's going to mutate you. It's going to help you uncover more and more of what it is you're here to awaken to and remember.
Yeah, and just 2 pitfalls to, again, observe in yourself. And that is when expectations are taking over, because that's your south node. So when you are being driven by expectations, open ego and open root, so that you feel, and when you feel like you're not living up to those expectations, you feel like you're failing, and that makes you feel inadequacy. So that is a loop that could loop and loop and loop in your open head and ajna, and could allow that 47 to really be oppressing you. And that's when you can't really ground, and when the soul doesn't know why it's here. So very important to get out of the loop of expectations, failure, and inadequacy. And instead, what you're tuning into is your deep wisdom from everything you have filtered.
Mm-hmm.
And it is knowing what you're here to preserve, what you're here to remember, and also that flow of life, like Asha is saying, you're in a way ever changing, because you're here to be a filter of the environment. So you are that nomad that is not fixed in the way of being.
Thank you so much, Esther. I'd love to see either Leanne or Rhonda, because they're actually here right now. Oh, Leanne's another reflector?
I told you there are so many reflectors.
She has the 35 again.
Chart.
Oh my God. Leanne, do we have to do yours? We just did hers and it's the same one.
I mean, let's a lot of the things here are the same. I would just say that when you're at 6-3, it can even be more chaotic, because the 5-1 still has a practical mind. And it has that aloneness to come back to. So what your soul has to come back to is just more chaos and more dynamism and more like stumbling.
Exciting.
So I would say in some ways, this chart is even a little bit more challenging because of that 6-3 thing. Your personality being so wise and your soul saying, no, you're here to experiment, you're here to stumble. So again, for you, even more important to let go of expectations and to understand, again, you're here to roam free and not feel inadequate for that roaming. And actually, you have super similar to my partner as well, with a 3.6 in your EQ. Well, for you, it's in your EQ and your Venus. And that's also to be a little bit aware when you're not feeling good in your Saturn and you're feeling that 6th line kind of disconnect. It's almost like you're accentuating that with your life's work in a 6th line, your evolution in a 6th line, your Venus and your Mars in a 6th line, and your Saturn, so that you're like, it's almost like you're becoming not human. And that's the last thing that your soul wants you to do. Your soul says you're here to be human, to laugh and to cry and to be in the mess of what's life. But your personality says, this is not for me, or I'm beyond it, or this is like this mess, I'm just going to sit up on the roof and I don't want to dip my toe in. That would be the worst. because you can't be a guardian for anything in this life.
Mm.
If you are disconnecting, if you're disincarnating, if you're
Mhm.
preferring the spirit to the soul. You're here as a 6-3 and everything that you have in your chart to live it all. And look at your attraction. It's a 44.3. It's all about the synergy with other people. It's all about the dynamism with other people. So don't believe your mind if your mind tells you it's better to be a lone wolf. Don't believe it.
Don't believe it. Yeah. And just like we said with the other last thing that I'll add for yours is that with that heroine and the adventure seeker that you have in you, with your nodes being the 42 and the 32, make sure you're constantly emptying, letting go, like allowing yourself to decide and discern, like, you tasted this. Did you like it? Do you want to carry it forward, or would you like to just let it go because you want to make room for the next adventure, for the next thing to come in to fill you? You know, constantly having those cycles of death and rebirth, constantly having the closure to things and knowing what you want to venerate, what you want to bring forward on your travels, on your journey. You have potential to have so much wisdom because of all the adventures that you have, but you have to constantly come back to yourself, empty out, and be like, who am I? Okay. And then go back into the world and do what you need to do to experience what you need to, enter into the chaos, sample it, fall down in it, and come back up. And then what is it that you want to contribute on an everyday basis into the world?
Yeah, and here the last thing I would mention is bringing in the design Jupiter and saying on an everyday basis, because so much is moving and so much is in chaos, I would say very important for you to find those partnerships, second line of the culture or the design Venus. Find those relationships where there's mirroring and reciprocity so that you can see who you truly are. With so much openness, you might actually need that. So part of what we are doing here with you right now, even if you're in the chat, like we are in a way starting just a spark of that being seen, because often for reflectors, that's the thing where you're not completely seen or heard because people mirror and see themselves in you. So there are some relationships out there where you are going to be able to be more of your uniqueness, and also where your contribution is going to be valued in a different way. So there, for me, what I feel is that the 8.2 is in some way a guideline that's important for you on an everyday basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Leanne, for being here.
So you said, is this what you said, Ashley? Go.
I don't know if that person's here. I know that Rhonda's here, but I don't
Okay.
know if Rhonda is a reflector or not. I don't know who else is here.
No, Rhonda is our Rhonda.
Oh, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda.
More three, and I'm sorry, 8 energy, 8-3 here.
Oh yeah. More 8-3? What are you talking about?
Like,
let me see what
more of the 8. The 8 seems to be.
Ooh, 59.5 and the 17. I like it. 3-5 though. 3-5 has that, like, you know, the trial and error, but like feeling. Let me look at this really quick. 59, transparency in the 5th line. There's some powerful barriers you're breaking down. You have the whole channel of mating. And with the 17 as your Saturn, being able to hold multiple perspectives and trial and error in the 3rd line as well. So how is Saturn going to show up? Probably going to be fixated on a certain opinion and making that solid instead of trying out and trying on different kind of perspectives so that you can arrive at, you know, what's true for you subjectively and what's true for, you know, objectively. So I think in trying out different things, you can get really deep with people because you got the 59.5. It's about not getting fixated on your preconceived judgment or notions of who they are, and really allowing yourself to go deep into the intimacy and like bear it all and put it all on the table, because it's also going to provide you with different perspectives to help you have that, you know, omniscience, have that multifaceted viewpoint of everything. And so Saturn's going to keep reminding you, hey, you can have another perspective of this. Let's see what they think about this. Let's like open up the dynamic, the relationship, to be able to understand maybe what their come from is. And that channel is super, super potent and alluring because you have the whole 59.6. So it's like just being around you is going to kind of open them up. So in a way, like, use that with caution and don't be manipulative and like to get what you want. It's like they're going to kind of bear it all to you. So I think in reciprocity, it's to do the same, and to not feel like you're going to be burned, or you're going to be a martyr or anything like that. Like being able to hold true to your values and not compromise yourself for the other, but know how to be sovereign in these relationships where you kind of really go deep with people and commit to the whole journey, to the whole experience, go full-hearted, full-bodied yes into that experience. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm going
That's
to kind of simplify here so we maybe have time with the chart that I brought up a few times and we didn't look at. So I will say here, we're looking at 59.5 Jupiter, the playmate. We're looking at 17.3, the discoverer, the bird that's flying. So here, it's important for you to be powerfully intimate every day. If you can't be powerfully intimate, you're going to feel like you are in a narrow box. You're going to feel the narrowness of life. And that's going to hurt. It's going to take you right to the core wound where you feel like you can't spark. And that's not going to allow you to go to your North Node, the soul's evolution, where you have an Aries gate of initiation, of being that initiator, of being that fire in your own life. So it's very important that you're able to be powerfully intimate in all your relationships. And on an everyday basis, the law that has to do with your culture in the gene keys, you are here to be in leadership. So again, every day of your life and in the big schemes of things, you need to be powerful, intimate, and you need to feel your own leadership. That's the way that you're going to feel your authority. That's the way that you're going to feel your expansiveness. There's no other way. And that's the way also how your soul is going to be able to have more of that empowerment in the Aries energy of the third gene key.
Juicy. Please, I hope you all consider joining expansion codes, because there's an opportunity to really go deeper with this. And I know that deep, we have the 59 again showing up in the designs.
1, 2.
1, 2. Oh, I like it. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yep. Oh my. See? Let's get intimate. Let's get deep. Let's figure out what your expansion codes are. Okay, so this is Kathy. Kathy's here too.
Yeah, and here again, so you are here to step up to your authority. You've had for months and months, like this whole year, Chiron was sitting on your Jupiter saying, are you in your law? Are you following your guidelines? Are you empowered? First line. It's sitting there, and Chiron is the wounded healer. It's uncomfortable because it's our wounding. And we had the sun as well. Like we have the sun and other planets that have gone through that now before they went into Pisces. So there have been many kind of crossroads to ask you this year, are you in your authority? And the thing is that when you aren't, you're going to feel pessimism. That's what the 13 does. It kind of looks at the world, it looks back at its own experience, and it's like, no, this is not a good place to be. And with all the dark things and all the things that I heard, all the dark secrets, no, so definitely super important. And you have that same Aries energy in the initiation on the other side of your Jupiter, where it's so important for you to initiate from your own fire, from your own spark. And very much as well, looking at your North Node on the design side, we have an initiation energy. And on the personality side, in the North Node, where your soul want to go, we have a liberation energy. And similar here as well, you have this individual energy, being you uniquely in the world, feeling your power as you're advancing in the world. And then the intimacy is also important for you. The intimacy is going to allow you to ground into freedom, ground into liberation, ground into authority, ground into your own initiation. And this is interesting looking to, at you're an emotional projector. And they say, just wait. Like, I'm sorry. I do really like mechanics, but you are a power projector. And there are going to be times where you're not even going to think about the invitation. You're just going to do it, because that's part of the mechanics of how you move through the world. And maybe you're going to know that it was maybe for you, there is an invitation, but how it's going to look on the outside, I don't think that people always are going to be able to see that you're a projector.
Yeah. And I think there's something powerful about the other Jupiter being in the 51, the gate of shock in the 5th line. So yeah, there is going to be times where you're going to be initiating people, but you're going to be using your intuition, and it's about being able to go in. That's your vocation sphere. It's your core wound. So like really being able to dig into the unease of like, do I share? Do I not? There's ways for you to be able to initiate, for you to be able to invite so that you can be invited. And there's no need to compromise anything within your mechanics or in yourself. And that allows you the opportunity to go deep with people and to share that transmission that you hold, where you are able to see like where they fit, how, like what they're seeking for, what they're searching for, like what they resonate with. And you're here to look at the doors and be like, here, this one, we're going to open up this door, because you are talented at, experiencing and navigating through these shocks and being able to retain your sense of self through them. If you've had them so many times, you're going to learn how to navigate them. And being an emotional authority, you're going to learn how to navigate these shocks in an emotion and ride that emotional wave, because your 39 and your 55 are like, okay, here's another opportunity for expansion, because we're going to liberate what's stuck so that we can experience that freedom, right? Liberation to freedom. So there's going to be a lot of moments in your life where it's going to even ask you to compromise, and you're going to be like, that's the shock. It's like, do I compromise myself? Do I compromise my values? Or do I stay in my true authority and be for myself? Because you got the 21.1. You are in charge of you. You're here to be empowered in your own inner authority of who you are. Doesn't matter what the outside world says. So it's like, you're a powerful person that has the potential to like get yourself through things and guide other people through it. You're here to be a role model. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And maybe, like now it feels like the world is like more open and a little bit more of that possibility to go your own way. But, we just knowing people that are born in the 60s and 50s, there is sometimes even a bit more of that heavy conditioning that is not at all going hand in hand with 21 and 51. So really, with Chiron being here on your Jupiter, once and for all, whatever you have kind of played small, it's time to allow it to crack. So maybe be super fast just to have those, like the last ones here. So here
if you want to do it, I'm not going to say anything because we're kind of running.
Here we have the same activation, the 21, and there is going to be, if you're not in your, well, this is interesting too, because those are different. This is Aries energy and this is Pisces energy. But here it's so important to be in authority, to follow your will and your determination, and to do it with the right people. And you have the medicine for something. And the only thing here, Ashley, let's maybe then just do this chart. What would you say is the shadow of the 26? Like when it's in Saturn, how is it punishing you?
Pride. It's never going to admit it's wrong. It's going to be in pride. It's going to reject anything outside of it. It's going to be like, nope, you're wrong. Nope, I'm not going to see that. And it can really fudge the past. It can like fudge the details and make up stuff. It smells bullshit because it is a bullshitter. And so this one is really going to be, I mean, it has the whole channel, the 2644. So there's just something about like this, well, I mean, the 21 and the 26 are in the ego. There's this egotism of like, I am the authority and I'm right and you're wrong. And so the 26 is going to come here to humble, right? It's going to be like, we got pride, artfulness, and invisibility. It's like, can you speak from the heart, the true heart, not the little I ego heart? And so there's a huge dynamic here of not wanting to be controlled, not wanting to be wrong. And spicy.
Yeah, so finding that balance between, yes, you're here to be an authority. You have the 21 as your North Node in many places. And at the same time, with all these 26, with all the 26 and 21, like that would be, read them in the 64
Lots
doors
of
and be like, how can the 21, the manager, or I would maybe more call it the knight, how can the knight and the hypnotist be friends? Because they need to be friends. You have those two activations so many times, and there are going to be times in your life where you're going to have to go deep, and that's going to be a challenge to actually surrender all of it, the control and the ability to hypnotize and just jump, so yeah, this is a cool chart. There's some risk taking needed in this chart for sure.
That's so good.
So I guess that if your name was there, you were almost picked, and maybe you're supposed to come in to this 5-week journey with us, so we really can look at your chart more deeply, and also you get to explore it with others, because they're going to also be the breakouts and different ways of understanding and practically using.
Implementing. Yeah. Join us. We start next week. 5 weeks. We
And
got
most
this.
of the questions in the Q&A were like personal, so I feel like there's nothing super important. But I mean, I can promise that all this can be answered as we're moving forward deeper into Jupiter and our alignment with our mechanics and living from our authority and not from our mind.
Yeah. Thank you for staying on with us. Thank you for joining us for Jupiter Unleashed. And I hope that you join us for expansion codes. But if not, you will see us around. And I think the next thing we're going to do is next week. We start expansion codes, but we're also doing the setup series. And we're going to go into Aries, set you up for Aries energy. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions. I am super thrilled to have you on, and for you guys being on so long too. Fabulous. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night. And here's to your
And you
expansion.
decide how intimate you want to be with us. If you just want to do maybe the Aries Masterclass, or if you want to be like this, you get to decide.
The 59 wants to be like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.